1918. After years of bloodshed, the Great War has come to an end. The German Empire signed an armistice with the Allies on November 11th, finally marking peace. 1919. On August 11th, the Weimar Constitution is enacted, resulting in all German nobles to give up their monarchical titles and effectively declaring all Germans to be equal in the eyes of the law. This era of Germany would come to be known as the Weimar Republic. 1920. The National Socialist German Workers' Party is formed. The party's foundation is deeply rooted in anti-communistic ideology as well as profoundly nationalistic views. They would later be dubbed as the Nazis. 1921. A young and gifted orator named Adolf Hitler, fueled by his frustration with the downfall of Germany's economy and his long-held anti-Semitism, rises through the party's ranks. His speeches attract large crowds as he preaches his rhetoric about his perception of the Jews as a menace that pose a national threat to the German people. On the 26th of July, Hitler becomes chairman of the party. For the next 10 years, Hitler's Nazi party continues to grow, as do their extreme beliefs. They quickly become the most dominant party in Germany, establishing an iron rule over the country with the formation of the Sturmabteilung, or the SA. The SA serves as an essential propaganda machine for the Nazi party, enforcing their agenda by brutalizing those who do not align with the party politically and ideologically. On account of their uniforms, these paramilitary units earned the nickname the Brown Shirts. They would arrest, assault, and antagonize Germany's public. On November 22, 1930, the Brown Shirts attack a group of left-wing workers attending a meeting at the Eden Dance Palace in Berlin. The attack is politically charged and left several workers severely injured. 1931. Several months after the Eden Dance Palace attack, a court is called into session to try the SA members who perpetrated the attack. The man hired to represent the plaintiff of the injured workers is the young Hans Litten. However, Litten doesn't want to just stop at prosecuting the SA. His goal is to take down the entire Nazi party, starting with Adolf Hitler himself. Hans Litten was born in 1903 to middle-class parents Friedrich and Irmgard Litten. As a child, Hans was a brilliant student who found himself excelling far beyond his peers.
Even more striking was his fanatical love of truth, his remembrance of the given word, and his absolute insistence that a promise once given must be honored. Besides his early and pronounced interest in science and art, he had two very marked characteristics: his great kindness and affection for poor people, and his love of animals.
As an adult, Litten was well-read, and after the encouragement of his father, he pursued a career in law. Litten sought out to protect those who were being victimized. He recognized early on that the Nazi Party was a fascist organization determined to exterminate democracy. By 1929, Litten has built a reputation as a champion of those who have been abused by authority. Now, he is tasked once again with defending human rights in the face of fascism.
Ist Ihnen bekannt, dass in den Kreisen der SA von einem besonderen Rollkommando gesprochen wird?
A roll commando is a military unit organized for a political purpose, such as overthrowing a government. Litten was accusing Hitler of treason.
Von einem Rollkommando habe ich nichts gehört.
Sie sagten, dass von Seiten der Nationalsozialistischen Partei keine Gewalttaten unternommen werden. Hat nicht Goebbels die Parole ausgegeben, man müsse den Gegner zu breit zerstampfen?
Joseph Goebbels was Hitler's Minister of Propaganda. His words spoke for the Nazi Party.
Das ist so aufzufassen, dass man die gegnerischen Organisationen erledigen und vernichten muss.
Ist es richtig, dass die revolutionäre Zeitschrift Goebbels das Bekenntnis zur Illegalität jetzt vom Parteiverlag übernommen ist und eine Auflage von 120.000 erreicht hat? Ich habe nämlich festgestellt, dass die Broschüre von der Partei sanktioniert ist.
Goebbels' journal is also known as the Nazi Sozi. It called for revolution through violent action, citing the enemies of Germany as Jews, Marxism, the parliament, and democracy. The journal was proof that the Nazis would ignore civility and the law in order to achieve their goals.
Wie kommen Sie dazu, Herr Rechtsanwalt, zu sagen, das sei eine Aufforderung zur Illegalität? Das ist eine durch nichts zu beweisende Erklärung.
Following this tantrum-like outburst, the judge ordered Litten to cease the questioning of Hitler. However, the damage had already been done. Hans had exposed a vulnerability in Hitler that had never been seen before. Adolf Hitler wasn't untouchable. After the Eden Dance Palace trial, the Nazis would seek out any opportunity to silence the man who had so publicly made a fool of their leader. They would look for any chance to prevent Litten from impeding their fascist organization any further, including publishing propaganda encouraging followers to put a stop to his dirty work and attacking him on multiple occasions. Litten was given the opportunity to flee the country to a house in Czechoslovakia owned by his family. However, Litten remained in Germany, saying, "The millions of workers can't get out, so I must stay here as well." On February 28, 1933, as the Nazis burned down Germany's parliament known as the Reichstag, Hans is arrested along with thousands of others who had also made themselves targets by standing against the Nazi Party. A while after his arrest, Litten was sentenced to a concentration camp. In the camp, he was beaten for information regarding his clients, but Litten refused to betray those he had protected. He endured torture not only physically, but psychologically as well, such as when guards would point a gun at him and promise to execute him, only to fire blank and laugh until the next day when they would repeat the process. Litten's mother managed to visit him in the camp on a few occasions.
He looked dreadful. His eyes were like those of a hunted animal, and there were bright red streaks round his throat, which were barely concealed by the muffler.
For the next 5 years, Litten was moved from concentration camp to concentration camp. No matter where he was, Litten still managed to care for his fellow man. He would share what little food he was given with the other prisoners, and would recite quotes from his favorite authors via his photographic memory to take everyone's mind off the horrors surrounding him. Those who had survived the camps often repeated that Hans Litten was one of the greatest and most noble men that they had ever had the privilege to know. 1938. In the early hours of February 5th, Hans Litten is found hanging from a propped-up floorboard in the latrine of Dachau. Though his death was ruled as a suicide, his humanity had died long before his last breath. The vile and monstrous cruelties of the Nazi Party had taken Litten's life, just as it would with the systematic genocide of 6 million others a few short years later. 10 days after his death, Litten's family flees the country following a warning from a brown shirt. In 1940, Litten's mother Irmgard writes a book detailing her son's selfless and tragic life. In 1945, Hitler dies, leaving an imprint on the world through his ugly legacy of prejudice and horror, as well as marking the end of the Second World War and the end of the Holocaust. In 1988, multiple German legal associations, later joined by the European Association of Lawyers for Democracy and World Human Rights, began awarding the Hans Litten Prize. This prize is reserved for lawyers who demonstrate the altruistic nature of Hans Litten by promoting work in human rights. Beyond all this, Litten's name has also been used for street names in Germany, along with a bust bearing his likeness placed on display in a Berlin courthouse serving as a symbol of justice and human rights. In spite of all these honors, Litten's story remains a relatively unknown exhibition of the horrific nature of the Nazi Party. Hans Litten demonstrated both triumph and tragedy through his valiant actions against a rising Nazi Party that grimly resulted in his incarceration and death. He ceaselessly fought to protect those who were being violently oppressed and endured torture rather than submitting to a fascist system. Ultimately, Litten's life represents altruism in the face of utmost adversity. Hans Litten had defended the oppressed. Hans Litten had defended humanity.